My name is John Burlett. I'm the fund manager of the Coastal Bend OZ Fund in Rockport, Texas. I'm going to just spend a little bit of time sharing my background. And I'm going to turn this over to Patrick, who is our legal counsel based in Michigan, very experienced securities attorney and OZ expert. So long story short, I spent 44 years in Austin, Texas, left just before the huge run up, had a financial planning practice focused on retirement income planning, Roth conversions, self-directed IRAs. I'm kind of considered a pioneer in the self-directed IRA space. Started buying tax lien properties in Travis County, Austin in 1992, much before it became, well known. Anyway, I ended up building my book of business in the fixed indexed annuity space up and sold that book in March of 2021, had a capital gain event, which caused me to begin a deep dive in the subject of opportunity zones. I bought a motorhome. As I mentioned, we traveled 17 states looking at these designated locations from coast to coast. Started in Nevada, went through Arizona, West Coast, Colorado, all through the Midwest. And I landed here in Rockport. I came across a bit of an anomaly situation. Rockport, probably you're not familiar with it. I wouldn't think if you're not in Texas, but we're just 30 miles north of Corpus Christi, and it's where Hurricane Harvey made landfall in 2017, destroyed about 50% of the structures. So we ended up acquiring and deploying my capital gain. When I sold my practice, I began a deep dive, like I said, and learned all I could about opportunity zones. So at this point, I want to turn this back over to Patrick and ask him to share a little bit about the policies and the regulations and all the things that make opportunity zone rules what they are. I'm going to stop sharing here and turn this over to you, Patrick.
Okay, thanks, John. Let me see if I can share something.
Yep, you're on.
And you folks see this screen that says a very pretty picture of a very pretty place called Rockport, Texas, and qualified opportunity zones. Can everybody see that?
Yeah, yep.
All right, cool. So, John, thank you for letting me participate in talking about one of my favorite subjects. Again, I'm a securities lawyer that specializes in tax incentive deals. Neil, you probably get me. Candace, I don't know what your background is, but since we're waiting for more to join or whatever, I'm perfectly happy making this interactive. Y'all can come off your mutes if you want to and share a little bit of your story. But I've been practicing law for longer than I care to admit. Always business finance, securities, direct participation programs. I'm a FINRA arbitrator, so I kind of get mixed up in the financial world. We do M&A in my little boutique practice called the Business Law Group. My partner does more M&A. I'm more sort of original capital formation, capital stack guy. So I fell in love with opportunity zones when I read about them. Similar to John, I didn't know John at the time, but it dovetailed into my practice really well in the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. So what I've done in order to educate myself and kind of get involved in the place over the last, 5 or 6 years was to, it's a complicated area. The regs, it took 2 to 2.5 years to roll out. And so I just decided to immerse myself in trying to meet people who were interested in the space, be they investors, be they fund managers, be they lawyers, accountants, whoever, brokers was interested in the space. And in that way, COVID happened after 2017, and I ended up meeting, it was a blessing in this respect that John and I met, others similarly situated met in and around the opportunity zone space. And we were all trying to figure out what this new tax regulation and statute was about and what the tax incentive was about. So over those years and in connection with my practice, I've developed this sort of intro presentation which I will spare you on going through it in great detail today, but I will make it available to anybody that is interested in getting a copy of it as a resource. This is not advice, obviously, because tax advice and legal advice is personal to your individual investment situation, but it's a little bit of a primer on opportunity zone tax benefits. What's the hubbub about? And then we're going to get a little bit more specifically into what does that look like vis-a-vis a coastal Bend, Texas opportunity zone investment with John. So let me just ask, I'll go with Candace first, if you care to share, Candace. I don't know if you can. Do you have any familiarity with opportunity zones at this point? Or are you involved? What's your level, if you will? If we were playing pickleball, what's your level?
Hi guys, sorry I'm at a hockey practice, but
No worries.
I'm just getting started. But a quick run through, I have been an accountant for years, and I am studying currently for the LSAT right now to hopefully go to law school, but I'm doing real estate investing as well, and I've done that since 2016, mostly single family. And some multi, but I'm connected with a lot of investors, namely in California. Just recently moved to Texas a year and a half ago from Colorado Springs. So I am in Spring, Texas.
Okay, great. Welcome to Texas, as they say. Plenty of room for everyone, right?
Yeah, thank you.
I'm in Michigan, but I have family, I have friends, I've got business associates. We've got Rockport, we've got John and his team. So I feel like I'm a sort of an adjunct citizen of Texas, but it's a great place to do business. And then Neil, you shared your background, which I appreciate. I mean, what about opportunity zones? Familiarity, done any deals?
I have one question I have to ask, Patrick. Candace, what hockey position do you play?
I'm actually here with my son.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Living in New York State, it's sort of the opposite of an opportunity zone. And in that case, I have become somewhat familiar with opportunity zones, but that's obviously another joke. I have not invested directly in opportunity zones, but my understanding, even in New York City, which I had considered following the great exodus it's had since the pandemic and such, New York in general just empties out more every year. And I had planned to relocate to Texas this year, but the heat wave that you all went through for the summer had me procrastinate to the point where I think I'm here for another winter now. But yeah, right now, even in the Brooklyn area, my understanding is there's an opportunity zone there that 30 years with like $5,000 only for taxes or something such as that. I was hearing from one developer there. It has me even relooking at my own state, and the timing of seeing this webinar just seemed perfect. I have Texas ambitions, hearing about coastal opportunity zones. With insurance rates going the way they have, looking at multi-family and things of that nature, I've been thinking I'm going back to land. I can get the same sort of exit equity multipliers with some minimum land development that I could do and turn my money over, the velocity of money, much more readily. So seeing this coastal properties, that it was nice to see some nice news. And I was like, I've got to learn more.
Oh, that's great. So what I'm going to do, since we have a small group here, and Candace, if you care to ask any questions or steer the conversation to what you're particularly interested, be happy to do that before turning it into really a case study, which is a real live case study of John's journey through how he ended up in coastal Bend opportunity zones. But so moving ahead, I mean, the whole opportunity zone tax incentive was designed to address the disparate or just spotty distribution of economic benefit and economic distress throughout the country. And so the idea was to come up with this tax incentive And this slide, and again, you can have, we're not going to go through these slides in great detail, but this slide basically is the policy sort of statement for what the opportunity zone tax legislation is designed to do. And it's because it's internal revenue code, the statute and the regulations are incredibly complex. There's, enforcement, there's filings, there's all kinds of compliance. But if you hold true to what they are trying to accomplish with opportunity zones, it gives you an idea of why these incentives are the way they are and why they require reporting and certain other things in connection with them. They're essentially saying, look, this is going to be sort of a free market thing. We're going to drive tax capital into these areas by offering a tax incentive of initially a gain deferral, and then ultimately a gain forgiveness on appreciation of a qualifying investment. So it's kind of like a 1031 entree into an investment. But what a 1031 doesn't give you is, after a period of time, in the case of OZ's, 10 years, a qualifying hold, you get excess appreciation tax-free, no depreciation recapture. That's the beauty of opportunity zones. And again, 1031s for you real estate investors. Candace, you're getting into it. Neil, you have been one. 1031s is kind of the holy grail of tax deferrals and rolling properties into properties, but it's limited. And later on in this slide deck that we're not going to get into in great detail, there's a comparison of the pros and cons of opportunity zone investment versus 1031 investment. One of the primary ones is, as John will say in his journey, his capital gains stem from the sale of a business. In 1031s, you can't do that. It has to be a like-kind exchange of investment or trade or business real estate for investment, or trade or business real estate. Real estate for real estate all the time, all the time. That's all you can do with 1031s. Not true with opportunity zones. A gain from anything, sale of a business, sale of Bitcoin, sale of a stock portfolio, sale of a painting. You also don't have to quarantine the proceeds of both the recovery of basis and the gain. You can take your basis, you can go do whatever you want with it because it's tax free. But the gain part of your capital gain transaction is what you invest in an opportunity zone investment. And that's kind of stepping ahead of the deal. But these are the policies that we go into it. So I'm going to skip ahead to a picture. Oh, by the way, Neil, you mentioned about, opportunity zones in Coastal Bend and in New York. They're in every state and in every territory of the United States. They're in Texas. The pink places are where the opportunity zones are. They're in Coastal Bend. This is right around Rockport, Corpus Christi. I mean, all along the coast. Well, again, as John will point out in his journey, this is not here because nobody wants to be in Coastal Bend. It's here because it got devastated by Hurricane Harvey, and it was economically depressed. That's one thing. Secondly, as John will get into more detail later, this is a little bit of a unique area. It's actually within, a 7-iron, if you're a golfer, from major population areas. And so the moneyed population of the Rockport, Fulton area is in Coastal Bend is really sort of the people that work there and are the small business owners, the service workers or whatever. Those are the primary residents, which go into measuring a census tract, which is how you get to be an opportunity zone. So you've got this really beautiful coastal area that was devastated by Hurricane Harvey, where the primary residents tend to be service workers, but it's a place for a secondary residence for incredibly wealthy people that are looking to vacation. It's an easy drive away from Houston, Austin, and whatever. So this is a really unique, kind of a unicorn of a opportunity zone area. I'll just say this is a little bit interesting. We talk to commercial real estate brokers a lot about how actually the data is proven in the early years of the program, where the sale prices of properties that are in qualified opportunity zones have actually outpaced those of sales in more economically beneficial areas that aren't opportunity zones, or even census tracts that would be opportunity zones, but they weren't chosen to be in the program. So this is a little bit dated data, but this trend is continuing. One thing about opportunity zones, as in everything in the tax code, there's a lot of acronyms because there's a lot of detailed definitions. So that's in the materials if you care to investigate and start talking the language of opportunity zones for you. This is a kind of a key to understanding it, how an investment works. So the taxpayer starts out with a gain, capital gain from an unrelated transaction to what he's going to invest in. Sale of stock portfolio, sale of a business, sale of a painting, sale of real estate, whatever it is. And in this structure, opportunity zones, the amount of that gain that you seek to defer needs to be invested in what's called a qualified opportunity fund. And they, does that mean it has to be managed by, Schwab or somebody? No, it can be professionally managed. In fact, as John will point out, he's actually established a professionally managed fund, but it also can be self-directed, but it has to be a qualified opportunity fund. It just has to be. That's the way the regs work. So the investment of the amount of the gain will go into your fund, which has to be a legal entity too. It can't just be like, a DBA. And then that fund, what does it do with it? It's actually just a conduit, and it turns around and invests into direct ownership of what's called opportunity zone property or opportunity zone businesses. And the businesses have to be equity investments. So it's a three-step approach. You generate your gain from an unrelated transaction, make an investment, equity investment into your own or somebody else's opportunity fund. That opportunity fund turns around and invests in opportunity zone property. These I mentioned briefly, but these are the tax benefits we're chasing. Gain deferral in an opportunity zone investment. That gain deferral is from the time you invest, and remember, this program started in 2018 until the end of the tax year in 2026. Now we're a little bit further down the road. So we're investing in 2023, and the deferral is in till 2026. So that's cool, and it makes it a qualifying investment, but it's not that great of a benefit. In the early days, back when they started this, there was also a step up in basis on what you were deferring until 2026. And that was up to a 15% step up in basis. That's no longer available because you had to have at least a 5 to 7 year holding period before 2026 tax year ended. And that's not possible anymore. So we don't, unfortunately, have this anymore. But the big reason that opportunity zones are such a big deal is the forgiveness of additional appreciation beyond your original investment after you pay the amount of taxes that's due in 2026 in your 2027 tax bill. But any additional gain, if you have a total of a 10-year hold in your QOF, that will be tax-free, no depreciation recapture. And that is the big enchilada of the tax benefits here. And again, I've been talking a lot, as lawyers do. We even call it in the materials, the big enchilada is that elimination of gain after a 10-year hold. Remember, you got to invest first in a qualified opportunity fund. And I'm just going to point out, this is a colleague of John and I's, Ashley Tyson from ozpros.com. He is a pioneer, Ashley Tyson and OZ Pros, in the OZ space. John and I are both colleagues of Ashley and his firm, but he has developed this cheat sheet, which is incredibly handy and well known in the industry. And it kind of walks you through from your investor that generates the gain, you invest in your QOF, and from there it goes into what is common practice and definitely best practice, invest in an opportunity zone business in a compliant way that is your opportunity zone asset for your fund. And that business then invests in individual real estate equipment or intangible property that's opportunity zone property. So it's this whole structure that is necessary to have an opportunity zone investment. Again, I refer you to Ashley and his genius in this cheat sheet and his firm Opportunity Zone Pros if you want more information on this. But this is a very handy dandy cheat sheet on how that works. So again, preferred structure is to invest in opportunity zone businesses. Opportunity zone businesses cannot be what's called sin businesses in the regs. And again, this is in your materials, but they're actually listed. There's very similar to new markets tax credit, country clubs, private golf clubs, massage parlors, hot tubs, suntan facilities, racetracks. I mean, there's like picking on golf a lot and sun tanning, but that's what it is. Can't be a opportunity zone business if you're one of those. Interestingly enough, another reason that best practices are to invest your opportunity fund money into an opportunity zone business rather than directly in your own real estate or equipment directly held by your fund is because you get some relief from certain tests that the opportunity zone business has to continue to meet over a period of time. And it's all dealt with through this thing called a working capital safe harbor, which is approved in the regs. And it's a big reason why 99% of all opportunity fund investments are made into opportunity zone businesses, even if that business is your own developing a short-term rental property that you bought and are fixing up and going to run as a business. There's some examples in the materials about how these tax benefits are realized. This one happens to be in a tech investment, but it walks you through that. Identifiable, and I'll just mention this before we get into John's actual journey, is predominantly what has been developed and invested in opportunity zones throughout the United States and its territories has been commercial real estate. So if you are real estate people, and Candace, you and Neil, you guys are, this is your space. You really got to be aware of it and kind of network in it, get to meet more people, watch some of these presentations and get some materials. Again, you got to keep in mind, this is part of the economic development incentive package. It works together and in conjunction with all the other benefits that could be available in a development or for a business, including 1031s. So you can 1031, if you want to break a 1031, that's going to generate a gain. You can take that gain and invest it in an opportunity fund. So you can sort of go in tandem from a 1031 into an opportunity fund. In the materials, we have some listings of managed opportunity funds and some good resources that you can take a look at as a start of your journey. This is your handy dandy comparison between 1031 exchanges and opportunity zone investments. And with that, we've gone a little bit over, John. I get a little bit juiced up on the boring stuff, but one of the cool things about this forum, I think is really neat, is John's particularly qualified to talk about opportunity zone tax benefits in Coastal Bend because it is exactly his journey. And so with that, John, why don't I turn it over to you and let's talk about the specifics of how your sale of your business became this cool thing you're doing in Rockport.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for covering all that material and educating us. Appreciate it, Patrick. Patrick does serve on my advisory council. I'm really pleased to have him on my team. I'll get into why now I chose to deploy my capital gains here in Rockport and tell you what this area is really all about. So I mentioned earlier, for those of you that joined after we got started, I sold my practice in Austin, had a capital gain event, had a registered investment advisory firm, and decided to do a deep dive in the subject of opportunity zones. I'd heard bits and pieces about it since it came out in the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act. Actually didn't get certified by the IRS and chosen by the governors of each state until the end of 17 and into 2018. So it's a relatively new incentive. Now, Rockport, this is where Hurricane Harvey made landfall on the Texas coast. It destroyed about 50% of the structures, including our courthouse and our city hall. These are about 2-month-old pictures showing the new courthouse and the new city hall being redeveloped. I would like to point out this property right here, I've got a better picture of it on the first slide or one of the slides down here, but this is owned by the Bass Brothers out of Fort Worth. They have an island 3 miles offshore called San Jose Island. It's been in their family for over 80 years. A lot of oil money comes to this island. They've entertained Presidents Roosevelt, Eisenhower, Bush, and who knows who all. It's 3 miles. They have the most prime property and have no known, certainly the public doesn't know what their plans are for that yet. Anyway, we're going to rebuild. We bought a property called the Oleander Courts. It was in the hotel district, got destroyed. And this is what we're going to use to rebuild what's called insulated concrete foam, or ICF. It withstands hurricane wind strength up to 180 miles per hour. So I used to own actually I bought an apartment complex near Beaumont, Texas, near Port Arthur in 2008, 45 days before Hurricane Ike made landfall, right up in this area. And of course, we're fully insured and made out like bandits, but I know a little bit about managing the risk involved with hurricanes, what they can do. The whole city was underwater. This is that 5-acre parcel. That's our harbor. This is the 5-acre parcel owned by the Bass Brothers. And right offshore here, we're on a bay called Aransas Bay. And there's a barrier island called San Jose Island, which again is owned by the Bass Brothers. This is our beach. The beach is extremely popular. The things that are driving the tourists to Rockport are, number one, the beach. It's the cleanest beach in Texas. And the reason it is, there's no major contributory rivers like there are in our neighbor counties. They're to the south of us, they're to the north of us. And it's a really big thing. It's a blue wave, designated blue wave beach, only one in Texas. So the families really, it's real shallow in here. The families can come and this beach is crowded with up to 30, 40,000 people on holiday weekends. Population's only 10,000. And there's so many second homeowners who report their incomes in Austin, San Antonio, and Houston. It kind of skewed the numbers somewhat because the data that was used to determine these geographically opportunity zone census was based on the 2010 census data, which is kind of old data to begin with. But the fact of the matter is, there's so many second homeowners here who report their incomes in where they have their primary residence, typically 3 to 4 miles away. So I was recently this year appointed to the Chamber Tourism Development Council. And frankly, I've just been in the community for 2 years after 44 years in Austin. I kind of feel like I've broken through the good old boy network that kind of exists here, and it did. By getting on this Tourism Development Council, I now have access to all the tourism data, and I can share with you these next few charts how the why I decided to deploy my capital and why I'm so excited about this opportunity. George Strait is our most famous second homeowner. He loves Rockport. You can click on this video. I have people come and I tour the area to them, and I put them on speakerphone in my car. I'll call City Hall and ask them to put us on hold. You'll hear a commercial by George Strait, how he loves coming here to his second home in Rockport. This is a feasibility study we had performed earlier this year by a company out of San Antonio called Source Strategies. And I did check with our one of our lenders to be sure they were credible and could be acceptable for a feasibility study on the debt. And they came back with a much more favorable study than even me as the visionary put forth in our pro forma. So basically we're at a cost per door of $258,000. Total, this is a little bit dated. This is the feasibility studies data. This is not our data. This is what they come up with. I have a packet that's 50 some pages thick on this study. I'm happy to provide it to anybody. This tells the whole story. This chart, this is the 2% of the hotel occupancy tax, a total of 17%. When you stay in the hotel in Rockport and almost anywhere in a destination location in Texas, you pay $100 for a room, there's a $17 hotel occupancy tax assessed. That total before Hurricane Harvey had reached almost 500,000. Again, that's just a 2% that goes to the Chamber of Commerce for spend for tourism promotion. This is the budget that the local chamber gets to use to promote Rockport. All the community wants here is tourism. They don't want the industry that's 30 miles away, even 15 miles away. Between us and Corpus is San Patricio County. And in this county, there's 85% opportunity zone. In the next county, it's like 2% opportunity zones because the incomes are in the next county. Anyway, this really tells the whole story. 2021, this Harvey made landfall in August of 2017. You can tell the revenue suffered, the city suffered, the art center was destroyed, the county courthouse, the city hall, and many, many hotels. So the tourist was off. Then COVID hit, and our 2% to the hotel occupancy tax now is trended almost double. In fact, this year we're on track to exceed $1 million in the chamber hotel occupancy tax revenue to promote tourism. I hope that was not so confusing to y'all. This chart shows a similar chart. This is total dollars, room revenue going to all the city, the state, the county. I don't know who all has their hands in this pie. I forgot to mention earlier that the art center, the other things that are big attraction here is fishing. It's the #1 fishing destination in Texas. The most cleanest beach. The beach is the biggest draw. The bird watchers are coming here by the droves. The winter Texans come here in the off season. And the art center, it's becoming a huge art destination. They just rebuilt a $12.5 million art center, no debt. So we've got a growing, thriving art community. But back to this almost $36 million in hotel rooms in a population of 10,000 people. In the 10,000 population, 7.5% of the community make their living as professional fishing guides. I think that number is shocking. Can you imagine 750 people are professional fishing guides in a population of 10,000? This is our rendering. We have 62 doors, a mixed use commercial component. We're 3 blocks from the bay. We're out of the flood zone. We're 9 blocks from City Hall, downtown shopping, the art center, less than a mile from the beach. This building is a rooftop lounge, a full service restaurant, on the 3rd floor. 2nd floor is a high-end spa, massage, skin hydro treatment, and then the 1st floor is a conference center. And once we added the conference center space to our project, and the thinking is to get heads and beds during the middle of the week when the town's pretty much dead from the tourists, is we can get corporate events here, and the guys, want to go fishing for a day and a half and a half-day meeting or vice versa. So we've got that conference center. It really juiced up our IRR. So what I'd like to do now is maybe ask Patrick if you would mind go through these offerings that we have available for those of you who might be interested, and see what that looks like as a potential investor. Turn it over to you, Patrick.
Okay, thanks, John. I'd like to welcome Alondria to the call. I love your background there.
It's actually Andrea.
I think it's Alondria. Is it? Did I mispronounce?
No, it's a mixture. She's Andrea and her husband is Alan.
Okay. Alondria is not a bad name either, though.
I agree.
It's Alondria LLC. So welcome, John. Yeah, great inspiration on what drove you to Coastal Bend to make your investment, right? Because this project started with your investment, but obviously the dream got bigger. And this is what happens when you get into the opportunity zone space. You can do the DIY stuff of your own projects, and plenty of people do that. There is nothing wrong with it, and you still get the same tax benefits of that excess appreciation after a 10-year hold being capital gain free. But also a lot of projects are developing. And when there's a project that requires more equity capital, and of course, all opportunity zone investments have to be equity investments, that's when these opportunity funds become larger. And if somebody doesn't want to manage their own opportunity zone investment, they can join a fund. So that's what John did to expand his equity base. Is created a fund called Coastal Bend OZ Fund. And this is what it kind of looks like. And this is kind of a garden variety thing of what you see in the OZ syndication world. Reg D is the exemption from registration that allows for public advertising and crowdfunding. Most of these deals, as all private deals, are accredited investor only. In John's case, they're currently, I mean, it's somewhat flexible, but the current equity stack is looking like about 8.5 million of additional equity raised beyond what John's already put in himself and raised. And so those that want to come in, minimum investment is 50,000. Of course, that can be rounded up or down based on whatever John and the interested party decide. But this is what a fund looks like. It's what John's fund looks like. And again, you can do your own DIYs, or you can look at other people's funds. In John's case, again, it looks like a real estate deal. Nothing different about it. It's got a cap stack of equity. In John's case, he's got CPACE debt, which is clean energy property assessed debt that is related to actually a special tax assessment on the property. That's kind of way beyond the scope of this, but it's really good for energy efficiency and hurricane resistant stuff. So CPACE is a really good candidate for the cap stack in John's project, and it's good for a lot of Coastal Bend projects. And then the senior debt will take out the construction debt, and it looks like a full cap stack. John's going to put solar installations, I think, on his project, which will create additional greenness, if you will, and also generate some additional tax benefits in the form of credits and bonus depreciation. That is currently in the mix, and we can't exactly list it yet with any certainty in the cap stack, but it'll be there. So then you can see on the right-hand side what it looks like in a typical real estate development of an allocation of the funds into the project costs, predominantly, most of which is building improvements, which is where you get your appreciation. And interestingly enough, while you're holding your 10-year hold in your opportunity zone investment, you will get depreciation, including bonus depreciation and tax credits that'll flow through to your holding, even while you're holding the investment for your 10-year hold. And in 2027, when you have to pay your 2026 tax bill on your original deferral, these depreciation allocations resulting from the building improvements and the solar will be able to shelter all or a part of that gain that you're otherwise having to report in 2027 for the 2026 tax year. Yeah, John, you can if you want to comment on some of your key people in the that you've joined with and partnered with in the development, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we have concluded just in the last few months that we need to bring a co-GP and or JV partner in at the GP level. The biggest resistance I've had in raising capital is my lack of experience in hospitality and development. So I have some really good ongoing conversations with some potential co-GPs that not only will bring in some capital, but is strictly going to come out of the 30% side of the split. And they also, we made some tentative letter of intents with one particular operator that's in the boutique operation space, has 5 properties in Texas. They're on the West Coast. We definitely are going to be engaging a manager, hotel operator with experience in that space. This chart here shows on $100,000 investment, we anticipate doing a cash out refi. If you notice back on the prior chart, we're pretty heavy on equity and only like 42% debt, 58% equity. And with today's debt environment and cost of debt, it's just so much better at this stage to anticipate and build on equity rather than rely on the debt. Anyway, we're going to cash out and return 55% or so to our limited partner investors. And once we exit after year 10, we anticipate a total IRR over that hold of 18.14% and a 3.8x multiplier on non-capital gain investors. By the way, over half of the equity we raised so far has not been capital gain monies. It's been Roth IRAs and other money that's already been taxed. So it's not limited to, at the end of the day, it's a real estate deal. And the project is very unique in that we are doing something totally different that doesn't exist here. What does exist in the hospitality space by far is fishing type hotels owned by Patels and other Indian type families. And quite frankly, they have great locations, but very poor, unkept properties. And with the exception of 3, nothing new since pre-Harvey. So there's no new hotel inventory since 2015. There's 3 limited services that are decent. And there's one place called the Lighthouse, which has a great location, but again, a lot of deferred maintenance. But for the most part, the current operators just choose not to, there's no, what I'm trying to get at is there's no inventory here for the market we're going after, which is the more middle class and the affluent who want to come here. And I think where I was going with this is the conference center, when the people here are, fishing people, men and women. We've got an annual fishing tournament that draws 12,000 fishing women. So for the most part, though, the guys want to fish and the women want to shop, and we want to host them in a high-end spa resort with a rooftop lounge, etc. This is the team we've assembled. You all know Patrick here. We got a late person joining us. Let's see who we can let in now. Okay.
John.
Yes. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, I was just going to say, John joined us.
Okay.
So, but yeah, John, if I might, if you could go back to the last slide right there. I just wanted to point out again, this is a financial model. As economic and financial circumstances change, the model changes, and until all final construction costs are locked in, everything is subject to. So this is an illustration and a model, but it does model the impact on a payback multiple of if you're just a regular sort of investor versus investing capital gains through an OZ holding. It's going to really pump up your payback multiple, and it's as if you're adding literally, another 55,000, 56,000 on your exit return. So it is significant. That's the incentive that drives people to invest. But what John, I think the message here that I'd like to drive home, thing about Coastal Bend, and I think the reason for this program is that Coastal Bend's a good place to invest in real estate, period. You put on top of that in an opportunity zone with a cool project and a project that's going to be well done, well managed, and well built. It has potential to be extremely attractive and tax beneficial, with accomplishing the objectives of the legislation, which is to raise the economic tide in the area.
What I'd like to do now is open up for any Q&A.
Hey, John, quick question in the chat. What's a blue wave beach?
I responded to that. It's a designation by the Earth Day organization, and it's really clean. It speaks to the estuary component of the fresh water and the seawater, and how it is so clean.
That's a big deal.
It really is. It's huge. it's really why the families are comfortable for their children coming here, and it's all the big thing now with the younger families. I see it in my own family, and my sister was just here talking about her granddaughter, and her granddaughter just had a child, and you know how they think so differently about their children can't be exposed to so many things in the environment, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, no, cool, thanks.
All right, thank you all so much. Please come to Rockport soon, anybody, everybody. We'll let y'all go. Have a nice evening.